Hi, everyone. So, for this week's assignment, I'm going to talk about organizational change, um, but almost more like systemic problems. Um, One of the greatest things that I've learned throughout this field placement is just how limited services are for those who have limited financial resources. I grew up in a very wealthy environment, and when I began to suffer with my own mental illnesses, my parents were able to pay for the best private psychiatrists and therapists, hospitalizations, and therapeutic residential care. It cost them an arm and a leg, but they were fortunately able to make it happen for me. Now that I'm working with the mentally ill population in a very low income area, most of the clients that I see are living below the poverty line in state sponsored housing and barely have enough money to put adequate food on the table, let alone to advocate for their children further than simply providing for them what the state will offer. Last week, during the course of an assessment, I had to go to a home in the local projects. The family had very limited resources, as neither parent spoke English, and their knowledge regarding the mental health system was also very limited. When working with the family, they were very trusting with myself and the family partner, as they wanted to do what was best for their child. Their son was 13 years old and experiencing a great deal of depression along with suicidal ideation. When we determined that the child needed to go to an inpatient level of care, the parents were concerned about us conducting a statewide bed search. Unfortunately, because our facilities are so limited in the state of Massachusetts, we conduct bed searches that are statewide, which means that this child could get placed in a hospital 3 hours away. And that's exactly what wound up happening, as we're at the mercy of the hospitals based on who has available beds. Let's see, where was I? Well, that being said, part of the adolescent inpatient treatment is family therapy, which would need to involve the parents in person. Neither of the parents had access to transportation and did not have the means to pay for a cab to transport them both ways on a weekly basis. Once the hospital found out that the family would not be able to make it to family therapy, they declined the admission due to acuity. Basically, what that means is that the hospital decided that they didn't want to take the child due to the family's inability to travel and participate in treatment, but they could not deny him based on that reason alone, and therefore said that his presentation was too acute or too risky for their facility. Things like this happen all the time. That being said, ultimately, I lost my place. I apologize. That being said, ultimately, another hospital took the individual. One of the things that I see far too often is that fair is not a word that is well understood in the mental health system, at least not in this state. I've never thought before that someone who met level of care for an inpatient hospitalization, therefore meeting criteria for Section 12, which removes some basic human rights, could be declined by a hospital. But in my time at my internship, I have found that this happens regularly, and I see it almost every day. Hospitals shouldn't have the right to decline treatment because someone might be a difficult patient. So basically, what I've been seeing going on is that the hospitals, in a sense, are allowed to have prejudice against the people who they accept. As long as they say it's for a therapeutic reason, it's justified. But that justification isn't actually legitimate in a lot of cases. And I have had some people at the hospital, some admissions directors, kind of joke around with me on the phone and say like, oh, like you guys wouldn't take this kid, or he's obviously too acute, or they can't accommodate him. But that's not the case. It's an inpatient psychiatric unit. They can accommodate whomever they choose to accommodate, as long as they have the resources. Now, I'm not entirely certain that they have the resources. A lot of these hospitals are publicly funded hospitals. And as I mentioned earlier, when my parents were looking into hospitalizations for me, they found the best hospital in the country, and then they made the arrangements for me to go there. That being said, most of these parents, if they even had the money to do that, they wouldn't have the knowledge base in order to advocate for their child properly. So my question to you guys this week is, have any of you seen any system injustices like the one that I mentioned? See you guys on the boards.